So it's time to get started back on this parking attachment, and I'm ready to spend the day out here seeing what I can get done. So today's Sunday, we got some more beautiful weather, got the shop doors open, so it'd be a good opportunity, I think, to go ahead and get some welding done. Even though I got the fume extractor, which I'll still use, I like having the doors open whenever I stick weld. Helps remove any of the fumes. So we're just going to enjoy that today. We're going to go ahead and get this sucker welded up, and my hopes is to get it welded. I'm going to let it cool, and then once we do, I'll bring it back down here to the mill. We'll go ahead and get it set up, and we'll finish out the bore for this tube right here. Remember, we're going to bore it to 1.25 inches. So I'll be using the TIG welder to get it tacked on there very good, and we'll TIG weld this in here, and I'll probably use the TIG and make a small bead around the bottom side right here, and in the sides I'm going to use my electrodes and fill all that in right there with some 70/18. So that's the plan of attack for today. I did want to mention real quick before we get started, the last video we had talked about these holes here that I drilled and reamed, or in this case I drilled these. So I had a lot of really good comments out there. Everybody's been very helpful and suggestive, and actually a lot of comments were, why don't you just make the pins that you need? So that's a very valid point. You know, I could go over to the lathe and turn some pins. So at this point, I really haven't decided what I want to do, but I'm still leaning towards just using this tension pin right here, because those will drive in there and they'll still be tight on the other piece. And really all these pins were intended to do was a little bit of help there whenever I'm fixturing all this up to get it welded together, help hold it straight. It's not necessarily in there for added strength to hold the piece on there, because I believe the welds will suffice, really. You know, having the pins as additional strength is a benefit though. So I don't know. I know a lot of viewers suggested making pins, but I don't know if I'm going to go that route. I really just like to cut these and drive these in there and use these pins, but I will figure that out once I get to this point. Okay, I'm not going to make a decision right now, but I did just want to address that and say thank you to everybody for, you know, kind of being involved and let me know your opinion on things. And sometimes hearing from other people and what they're thinking is helpful to me, because I'm not necessarily thinking on that line. I'm thinking over here on this direction, and other people are like, hey, what about this? As we've said it before, there's always many ways to get a job done, and I'm never showing you the only way to do it. I'm just showing you my way to do it. Okay, so, and that's with all this right here. This is just my way of thinking and my way of building it. Some of it I'm going a little overboard, and it's just because it's fun and it provides good content for the channel here on all the different machining aspects that I can show you here, and welding and fabrication and that kind of stuff. So let's move on down here to the welding machine, and we're going to start getting some welding done. So I got the table nice and clean, kind of Scotch-Brighted right here, and what I want to do is clamp the piece together. My C-clamps that I have, I've got some big C-clamps, but I got them at work, so the next thing I got to work that I can use this on is this pipe clamp right here. So that's what I'm going to use, just to pull it together and get everything tacked off nice. And it's just big enough on the clamping faces to hold this tube right here. Alright, we'll go ahead and I'll go ahead and start getting some tacks all the way around it here. I'm going to set up the TIG welder for that. go. Go ahead and get this little fillet welded in right there. I don't know why I called it fillet, but it's a V anyway.
I'm just kind of using the lay wire technique. I've got my puddle that I'm working back and forth, and I'm just laying the rod right in front of the puddle, and it just kind of sucks the metal up into it.
Yeah, I got major leaking issues going on right now. This is something that I've got to address. I know you guys noticed that, and it seems like it just keeps getting worse. So looks like this is going to be the last little welding job for this torch until I get this thing fixed. There we go. There's the top and bottom, so we'll go ahead and start doing in the stick welding on the sides now. Okay, time to start laying down some stick welding. I'm going to start with this pack of, these are some 3/32 Lincoln Excalibur electrodes that a viewer had given me last year. So we're going to use those. I'm going to lay in basically my root pass. It'll be my first pass down through there. And the smaller rods, you can get down into that 90-degree V a little bit better. So we're going to use those. And then I'll jump to my 1/8 70/18s right here. And we'll lay in probably 1 or 2 filler passes on top of that. I'll give you a shot of what it's looking like going down the 3/32 rod. Just kind of filling it in there pretty good. I'll finish that one out, and I'll go right on top of that with a 1/8 diameter rod. Like we got a little bit of lift on the flux there. Doing pretty good. Kind of hard to decide on what I want to do with it. I'll give you a close-up though. Tried to fill her in nice. It's a little taller bead than I wanted. I didn't really flow it into the tube quite as much. So I want to go ahead and put a bead on the other side to kind of match that, and I'll figure out what I want to do. If I want to keep filling it in, but I think it's welded good like it is. We'll see. This is the other side. I think I did a little better on the weave on this side. Looks a little bit more uniform. I think we got a pretty good weld there. Yeah, I don't know, man. I think I'm hitting a point where I believe it's going to be good enough as it is. So I think I decided what I want to do. I think we're going to keep the welds simple on this. We're not going to dress them like we did the top and bottom. You know, I wanted those to be nice and square. But these right here, I think what I want to do is just clean them up with the grinder, dress them with a flap wheel, and just make them look kind of smooth. You know, of course we'll get the spatter off there, but I went ahead and ran one more pass on this side right here to kind of fill in. There was still a little bit of a gap right there. So I filled that in, but the other side, and by the way, I got my fan on just trying to help cool the part here. Let her cool down and then we'll move on. But all right, that side right there, I'm happy with the way the bead turned out on that side. So I didn't add any more to that. So we've got two nice hot weld beads on this side. There's actually 3 on the other. And again, we'll dress it down with the flapper, make it look pretty. And I did measure it with the calipers just a few minutes ago, and it looks like on this side I've got 10 thousandths to come out, and on this side it actually only warped about 5 thousandths. This one being a little more because the welds didn't come all the way out here to this end right here. So I've still got metal there to clean up to 1 1/4 inches. So we're gonna let her finish cooling off and we'll be back. So we're getting set up to get the whole board in the parking attachment, and I was thinking about reaming it, but my reamer, the length of the part is just slightly too long to use a reamer. It won't go all the way through. It's about a 1/2 inch shy. So I might have to use a boring bar and the boring head. So what I have done is I found this 1-inch bar. This is one we've had a long time that I really never used. It's probably an import. Not really sure. It takes a 5/16 tool bit. So I've got it marked. I'm going to take 2 inches off of it to kind of make it as short as possible, but to be able to go all the way through that bore, and we'll actually just bore it to size. So I'm going to cut the 45-degree end off of it because I'd prefer to have the straight end, so I can a little easier to use a chamfering tool on that end right there. I'm going to use the Metabo and my welding shield set on grind. It is. It's important whenever you use a grinder, cut-off wheel, grinding wheel, whatever you use. Let the weight of the grinder do the work. Don't shove it in there and try not to get it in a bind and change angles, but just let the grinder do the work. Let that surface speed slice that metal and remove it. Try not to push it in there, because then all you're doing is just wearing the wheels out. Alright, this is the reason why I had to cut it off. I wanted to make it as short as I could. Alright, you can see we're real close to the edge of the boring head, and then got just enough room to have the tool outside of the part if I want to come in here and do a chamfer. Alright, so I need to grind up a tool bit and we'll get everything centered up. Got a piece of Rex 95, and I'm going to grind this up into one end's going to be for turning, or boring, and then the other end I'm going to machine into a chamfering tool. Grind into a chamfering tool. So I think you can see this. This is my coarse wheel, and then the fine wheel's over on this side here. Just going to get rid of this grind here. Starting to put some back and side brake into it. That's going to be the cutting tip right there. So now I need to give it some side relief here. Alright, so then I'll finish it over here on the finer wheel. There's a finished turning tool right there. I'll do some honing on it, but I'm going to leave it pretty sharp to try to reduce the chatter. So I'm going to flip it over and do the chamfering tool on this side, and then what I'll do is I'll cut it with the Metabo over there to the lengths that I need. It's just easier to deal with a longer tool bit than a little short piece that's already kind of ground short enough to fit in the hole. touch it up on the fine wheel, and then we'll go cut it. All right, so I got the bit just marked in 2 places there where I need it cut. I'm just going to use the Metabo, trim them, and then I'll go back to the grinder just to kind of break the edges off the cut side. So we're going to go ahead and start getting this indicated, and I want to make sure that I get the tube indicated straight this way and on this axis also. You know, I want to make sure I'm not tilted. So after we get it bumped true this way, I'm going to move the indicator to the top and see if I have to shim this in any way. There may be a little bit of movement on the dial just because of the piece being warped, so I'm going to try to maintain at least most of this, you know, we'll have like a 0-0. So let's give it a shot and see what we find out here. All right, now I've just got the nut snug on this angle plate over here. Not far off there. All right, so that's +2. All right, we're at +3. +2. Went just a tad too far. That's pretty good, I believe. Zero. So it looks like we got 2/1000ths. Maybe 2/1000ths low. You can see our dip in the middle. 2. Just got this one clamp here just kind of snugged up. That's 1/1000ths. That ain't bad. -1. Let's see what it says this time. -1. Looking pretty good. I'm gonna go grab my other big green clamp and we'll put it on this side here. So my big green clamp wouldn't have worked. You know, where I had it at right here, the bore head would have hit it. So what I ended up doing was putting a stud and a strap clamp, and I used that step block there to hold it. So that's work there, and we're not doing any heavy milling on this or heavy machining. You know, we're just kind of skinning that bore out to 1 1/4 inches. So I think it's ready to go. We got everything in line. Now I need to find the center of it, and I'm ready to get cutting on this thing. All right, I got the coax set up here. We can get centered up. It should be true with the end of the outside diameter right there, I hope. I'm just moving the table manually to try to get her lined up. Looks like about a 1/2 thousandths. Let's see if I can just bump that. Half a thou. All right, I'm gonna lock that right there. Okay, we got the table locked, we got the knee locked, and everything is, I'm gonna say that's within a 1/2 thousandths there, and we already indicated this, so this should be nice and true. I'm ready to set that bar in there. I already got it set up. I'm gonna put that in there, and we're gonna start cutting a hole. All right, guys, I got the bar set, and I touched off and moved it in a couple more thousandths. I'm gonna make a pass through there and see how it cleans up, if it stays nice and straight, and then we'll get some measurements off of it from there. It'll probably take a little while to get through, but I'll show you some clips along the way here. I checked it with some calipers and it looked like I had maybe 4 or 5 thousandths the most to come out. So I went ahead and reset the cut, and I'm gonna let it go on through there. It's over halfway through and it still sounds like it's cutting all the way around. All right, there's the end of the cut. Not a bad finish. It's not the best finish, but it's not bad for what it is with that long stick out. So I was a little off center on this end. It was just barely touching there on that side. So it's just missing it here, but it's starting and going almost all the way around. Right there I got 240. One inch 240, I mean. One inch 240. All right, I got the digital readout on and zeroed. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and move the I'm gonna move the table down so I can get it and measure the back side. This time I got 1 inch 241. It's pretty consistent. It's doing better than I was thinking it was going to do. got about 1,000 taped, 241, 240 right there. So I think we can live with that. Let's go ahead and I'm gonna mic the original over here. I'm gonna see what they got and mic that shaft, and try to copy the fits that Kearny and Trecker made. So I measured the Kearny and Trecker part. They did an awesome job making it. It's got a really smooth bore, and they finished it like 1/2 thousandths over. And the pin itself is micing 1/1000ths under. So it's got about 1/1000ths to 1/1000.5 clearance to go through there. So what I'm gonna do is, this was 241, that was 240. What I want to do is just dial in 10/1000ths and let that be it. And if I need to, I'll come in here and do some flapping by hand and try to get it slicked out and on size like it needs to be. All right, so loosen the 2 clamp bolts there, and I'm on 40, so I'm gonna take it around to 0. That'll be, let's see. It felt like I had a little bit of slack there when I first started moving it, so I moved it another 1/2 thousandths there. All right. Go. Okay, just about done with this cut. I'm hoping that's it there, but we'll see. Either way, I can machine the pin to fit this hole. It's not like that if I overshoot this that it's going to kill the job, but we always like to hit our numbers. All right. Just putting a little bit of the, this is just solvent right here. It dries really, really fast. It doesn't hurt the machine because it evaporates and leaves whatever oil you move out of the way there. So let me check it real quick. Right on size. I might go get that other telescope gauge. I don't think that one did very good there. Yeah, I overshot it. I overshot it by 5/1000ths. At least I'm consistent. It's 5/1000ths on both ends right there. So what that means is whenever I machine this, I'll just machine it to fit this hole. Even that right there is a good fit. Alright guys, that's going to be the end of this video right here. I'm happy to get this done. I still need to do the dressing on the welds like I'm talking about, but I'm gonna do that later, and I'll show you that too. But it's getting late in the day here Sunday, and I want to go ahead and wind down, and we got the barbecue out there on the grill, so I'm getting ready to tend to that. But I'm happy to get this finished right here though, so that we can pretty much move on to the next piece. So even though I overshot that bore by 5 thousandths, it's still okay. You know, even this right here, this pin, that don't fit too bad right there. But whenever I machine this pin, we're gonna make it fit. We're gonna make it fit like it's supposed to. I don't think it needs to be like a bump in or lightly press fit. It just needs to go in there and not wiggle around. That's what I would try to make it. So we'll shoot for that whenever we get to it. But I hope you enjoyed everything that I've been showing you. I'm continuing to have fun sharing it with you, and I'm going to keep this series going for you. So see you on the next one, okay?